Hi, welcome to learn more about the Master of Education, part of the Meet Melbourne Graduate webinar series from the University of Melbourne. This webinar today will cover the Master of Education at the University of Melbourne's Melbourne Graduate School of Education. My name is Patrick, and I am the International Student Recruitment Officer at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education, or MGSE for short. And I'll be your moderator tonight. Uh, Today, we will be joined by three students from the Master of Education who will answer any questions you have about their experiences and about the course at the end of this webinar. Today, we'll be joined by Alejandra Bugado Turvit, Ellen Herka Prospita, and Rick Spencer. Um, the webinar will begin with a basic overview of the Master of Education, including entry requirements, the application process, and we'll finish with the Q&A sessions with our students, where we will get questions from you, the audience members, and we will try our best to answer as many as we can on air. We have received an overwhelmingly large number of questions submitted by you, and we'll try our best to cover all of them today. If you have any further questions throughout this webinar session, you can always ask them in the chat function, usually located on your right. And we will try our best to answer the queries on air live for you. Just a quick reminder, this session is being recorded and will be available in the next few days for you to view at your leisure. But before I begin the presentation, in the spirit of reconciliation, the University of Melbourne acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to the land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Okay, so today, let's get started. We will talk about the Master of Education. The Master of Education is basically a very flexible and dynamic course that is suitable for anyone who wishes to get a role or a leadership position in the education industry. Think of it as the MBA for the education industry. Right? It allows you to choose specializations that suits your career objectives and is flexible enough for you to specialize in more, not just one, but two different areas. Now, it is also very important to note that the Masters of Education is not a teaching qualification. That's an entirely different course, and I'm happy to talk more about that during the Q&A session. But please note that the Master of Education does not require you to have a background in education. This is basically a master's postgraduate coursework program that is designed for anyone who wants to have a career in education industry, but not necessarily as a teacher. Right. Now, the Master of Education by default is a 200-point program, which lasts for 2 years. There are part-time options, and most of our classes will be running on the weekend and evening, which makes it quite flexible for any one of you who might be working part-time or might be considering juggling family life, work life, and study life. If you have a background in education or if you're a registered teacher, you do get an advanced standing of up to 100 credit points, which means you only need to study for 1 year full time. Again, part-time options available. Now, this course allows you to choose from 9 different specializations, which we'll talk about more later. But this specializations lets you focus on key areas that are unique and critical to your career objectives or your career goals. There is also a research option available for anyone who wishes to further their studies after the master's degree into the PhD for education. And if you're someone who prefers not to specialize, but more tailor-make your Masters of Education to suit whatever interests you have, Baron, you'll be pleased to know that there are 50 different electives for you to choose from, giving you the customization options, endless customization options. Right. The 200-point program course structure is visible on screen right now. You will start off with four core subjects in your first year with 4 elective slots. And then your second year is when you start your specialization. In order to obtain a specialization, you need to complete 4 specialization subjects. Once you complete all 4, your testament will actually indicate that you have a specialization in that specific field. It is possible for you to get a double specialization by using your elective slots to take up another 4 more specialization core subjects. So that means a total of 8 different specialization cores, allowing you to do a double specialization. Please bear in mind, though, that this option is generally recommended for students who are doing the 2-year program. It is also possible if you have a teaching background or an education background, you can enter the program in your second year, and then choose to rescind 25 credit points, allowing you to do an additional 2 more subjects and letting you do a total of 8 specialization cores. But this won't be done in 1 year. This will be more on the lines of 1.5 years. So it is possible, if you have a teaching background, to have a double specialization. You just need to extend your studies a little bit. If you're interested in research in your final semester, you can do a research pathway. This research pathway will be the basis of your application for the PhD in education. It is usually conducted in your final 50 points of your final semester. Now, you've heard me talk about specializations, and the 9 specializations can be split into 2 different categories. The first category that you see on screen right now are your curriculum-based specializations. Now, these include arts education, literacy education, mathematics education, and science education. These 4 curriculum specializations lets you specialize in different ways to um, inspire and to educate children, not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom, and also to help build communities to understand and appreciate these different curriculums as well. So, for instance, if you did arts education, you'd be looking at different initiatives on how to improve arts education in the classroom, out of the classroom, and even benefit the community. The others half of these specializations can be considered as professional skills that are suitable for the education industry. These skills focuses on different essential traits and skill sets that you find in the education industry, such as assessment and pedagogy, leadership and management, ideal for anyone who wants to be a headmaster or a principal. Policy in the global context is amazing specialization for anyone who wishes to look more into the roles of politics or policy making. Student well-being, beneficial for anyone who wishes to assist students and to help them and nurture them along their journey. Now, the course outcomes um, is greatly dependent on what kind of specialization you choose or what kind of electives you choose. Um, Generally speaking, the Masters of Education is a good qualification for you to get if you wish to further progress in your career in the education industry. If you're a teacher and you want to become, say, a course leader, for example, or if you want to become an assistant principal or a principal, this degree would be ideal for you. It's also great for anyone who is looking to do a career change but not necessarily be a teacher. Uh, you'll be surprised to know that quite a lot of university staff, the professional staff, actually do take this course so that they can, better develop policies and initiatives that benefit students in the university. Um, so it all ranges and depends on the type of specialization you choose. Leadership and management for leadership roles like headmasters and principals, policy making for anyone who wishes to work in government and non-government organizations, the curriculum specializations for anyone who wishes to be a specialist or a coordinator of a course subject coordinator, So the options are quite endless, the same as how endless the combinations of different electives and specializations you get to choose. Now, entry requirements, basically we're looking at a 3-year undergraduate degree or equivalent from any background. You don't have to have a teaching or education background. That's for entry into our 200 point program. If you do have a education degree, a 4-year education degree, or an undergraduate course with at least 100 credit points towards education, you get entry into the 100-point program. It is also important to note for international students that there is an IELTS requirement of an IELTS of 7.0 overall, with writing at skill level 7 and no testing skill less than 6.0. We do accept other testing formats aside from IELTS, and we do recommend that you visit the URL on screen to find out more. For domestic students, we will need to see a copy of your most recent CV, highlighting your job experience and your ability to your academic history as well. Okay, now in terms of application processes, it's quite straightforward. If you're an international student, you have two options. You can either apply online to our website, or you can apply through an education agent. If you're a domestic student, you can apply directly through our website. On screen right now, you'll see the critical dates for the intakes. If you're planning to join us in the middle of 2020, the closing dates for international student. First round has passed, so we are looking at 12th of June is your final application date. For domestic students, we are looking at 12th of June is your first round of applications, and your final round is on the 8th of July. If you're looking to join us next year, you have a little bit more time. 31st of October is the closing for the first round of intakes. And then after that, it's 4th of December and 5th of January for international students and 12th of January for domestic students. All right, so I know I plowed through this quite quickly. That's only because I'm very eager and keen to introduce you to our panel of students. So today we are joined by 3 students, Alejandra, Rick, and Ellen. And you'll see them on screen right now with us. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We've received quite a number of inquiries from the attendees who have registered. And as you can see on screen right now, everyone, these students have done a variety of different specializations. Alejandra, would you like to, we'll start off with you. Would you like to introduce yourself and the specialization that you're doing?
Okay, no problem. I'm Alejandra Abogado. I'm from Paraguay, South America, and I chose the leadership and management specialization.
Hi everyone, my name is Rick Spencer and I've chosen the Equity, Diversity and Social Change specialisation.
Lynn?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Ellen. I'm from Indonesia and I'm taking the Assessment and Pedagogy specialization.
Right, brilliant. And before we jump into the questions, I just want to quickly ask a panel of students, how's everyone doing? I hope you all are safe, as are the audiences as well, at this critical time. I would like to find out, how's your learning experience so far this year?
I'm really loving it. The fact that lockdown has presented some initial things for myself to get around. The great thing I like about the resources at Melbourne Uni, everything's online. So I have time to kind of reflect on what I'm doing. I'm a bit old fashioned, so I still like to print out all my articles, have them all around me with my plants and my cats. and I spend that time kind of reflecting on ideas. So I'm kind of enjoying the kind of the solitude, and I see it a bit of as an adventure into the unknown. And although I do miss that student face-to-face contact, but we have webinars, we have Zoom sessions that we meet up regularly with other people to exchange ideas. So it kind of gives me more time to kind of really focus on that academic style of, getting through my readings and, yeah, taking that time. So I think it's a unique time to be in, and it's a wonderful time to be studying with social change happening right in front of us.
Alejandra, how has it been so far?
Well, I would have to say that I agree with Rick, because having so much time in our hands to for example, we can't be outside, we can't do anything else, so I'm investing all of that in my studies, so I'm doing more research than before. I'm enjoying a lot because the teachers are giving us so many opportunities online to discuss with our partners. It's very, very fulfilling, and I'm very satisfied with the experience of online classes.
Yeah, I also have to agree with that in a way that at first I might feel a bit anxious on how I might, indulge myself to all of this online learning situation. But uh, all of the stuff from the university has been very helpful in, providing all of this platform for us to study online and make it possible for us. So it's sort of a beautiful experience for us to learn to be resilient as well.
I'm glad you guys are actually having a a pretty decent time with your online studies. um, I've actually received a couple of questions for students. So let's just get started on that. We One of the questions I've received is more about the background, right? Education background. Now I know some of you don't have any background in education, and this student who's sent in the question doesn't have one as well. So they'd like to know what's your advice on how to prepare for the Master of Education, considering that they don't have a background in education to begin with.
So yeah, I have to say that I'm a lawyer, and so that's my undergraduate, and but I have practiced as a teacher. However, before having practiced as a teacher, I have always been passionate and updated with the current education practices. So that helped me a lot for this experience. I'm doing the leadership and management specializations, and I'm aware that the teachers of that specialization offer a variety of assignments to complete for people who are in schools, for people who are not, and then but could have information from a school, and then from people who can bring all the knowledge of leadership and management into their workplace. So I would say that most of our assignments in this specialization could be tailored to the experience that one has, but I should say that the passion towards education is very important.
Rick, I understand you don't have a background in education as well,
Oh,
right?
I do. I am a
Oh,
qualified
sorry, my
teacher,
mistake.
but that's okay. But I did spend 25 years in social work and welfare, and I always had a passion for social justice and how can we change the world. And I would recommend anyone that doesn't have an education background, please don't feel you have a lot to offer, because it's about being open to new ideas. And that's the one thing that I've learned as a mature age student, is that I've learned so much with people. And you can be 22, you could be 62, or sorry, even older, 92. You have something to contribute and something to learn. So please don't consider that if you're not a VIT registered teacher, or will I fit into the classroom? Yes, you will, because when we're in that space, we're exploring ideas and we're trying to navigate ourselves into a new way of looking at the world to make it a better place. So I would say if you've done an arts background, if you've done a welfare background, lawyers, business, you have something to offer, and we're all learning from each other. There's a synergy of new ideas happening every time we go into a tutorial, and it's something that you take with you and you use it for the rest of your life.
That's a very good point you have there, Rick. I'd like to also point out that a lot of the courses that we do, a lot of the subjects that are offered through the Masters of Education, um, thrives on the different background of ages and education background of the students in the classroom, because everyone has a different perspective to share. So this variety of experiences, this plethora of different experiences, basically is one of the key things that drive certain specialization subjects, especially around things like policy, education policy in practice, which is one of the key subjects. That that subject it thrives on international experience as well. So if you're an international student, you don't have to worry. Your understanding, your experience in your education system can definitely benefit the rest of the classroom as well.
And can I just
Uh,
add, being someone
yeah.
who identifies as trans non-binary, Melbourne Uni have been very supportive, and they're supporting me in my research, and my research is looking around providing safe spaces for students and genderqueer teachers. And to come to a university and be so welcomed and supportive, it does make a difference. So even if you're someone out there who feels a bit different, come and join us, because we're a community of diversity.
Thank you, Rick. Ellen, you've got a message directly for you. Someone wants to know, what's your experience in specializing in um, assessment and pedagogy? What's it been like so far, and how would you summarize your specialization?
Okay, so this is actually my first semester, so I've taken 2 of the total of 4 of the specialization subjects. So far, it's been rewarding. In the specialization of assessment and pedagogy, most of the students are actually teachers, because they have this vision to like develop themselves more on how they can develop their teaching practice. Mainly, we learn about formative assessment and all of those things. Um, so even though they refer a lot to the curriculum here, the education system in Australia, and I'm an international student, they really allow us to expand and bring our background to our to the classroom and basically give something to the discussion. And they've been very open in a way that if we come from different education system, it's okay as well to just contribute to the class. So it's been rewarding, and because we got rich experiences to share as well. So it's been a lively discussion so far with all of my colleague students in the specialization.
That's great. Thanks for sharing, Ellen. Now, we've also got quite a few questions in regards to the one-year program. I don't think any of you are taking the one-year program at this moment, right?
Oh, Rick
Oh,
did.
Me.
Rick is. Yes. Okay. So how are you finding the one-year program, Rick?
Oh, I love it. For me, if I could do more extra units, I would. But I'm looking at taking it further to a PhD level. Look, it's the great thing about the one-year program is that you can space it out over 2 years. And if you are working in the classroom or you're working in some other industry, the way the classes have been designed, they're undertaken within like a cluster of a couple of weeks. So you can kind of get your assignments, everything completed, and move on to the next subject. So you're really focused on that one unit at a time to really put all your energy into it. And the first thing I can say is that with that 1 year, essays is something that a lot of people struggle with, but the great thing is there's so many resources there. There are people actually at Melbourne Uni who will help guide you through that. And there are online sub courses you can join, or face-to-face with academic support who can guide you through that. So the good thing about it is the hesitation of, oh my God, can I write an essay? My thing is to say, yes, you can. It just takes a bit of time and practice. As we tell our students in the classroom, the more you practice, the better you'll get. And it's the same thing here. But you're supported along with your lectures on that journey. So 1 year is fantastic. It goes quick. I'm doing it part-time over 2 years, and I love it because I'm absorbing all the information as I'm going along.
Thank you, Rick, for that passionate description of 1 year. Now, just to further touch on that 1 year course subject, one of the questions we've received here is, can I do 2 specializations if I do the 1 year program? And another question that we received about the 1 year program is, can I choose electives? Okay, simple answer, yes to both questions, all right? If you're doing the 1 year program, you will be doing your, hang on, let me just backtrack a little. If you're doing your 1 year program, you're jumping straight into the 2nd year that you see here, right? And when you jump into the 2nd year, if you want to choose electives instead of specializations, you can do that. You don't have to take the specialization core. You can swap the specialization core for electives instead. That just means you don't get to choose your electives because, sorry, you don't get to choose your specialization because you need 4 core subjects for specializations. Now, if you want to do a double specialization, it can be done. A double specialization just means that instead of using your elective slots, you are using all your elective slots to study your specialization core, and then you are taking a further 25 credit points extra to do an additional 2 more specialization core subjects, which means instead of 1 year, you are finishing it in 1.5 years. All right, so it can be done. If you want to do a double specialization in your 1 year program, in the 100-point program, you can do that. You just need to add an additional 25 credit points to it. So it means not accepting the full 100 credit advanced standing that you get, and just saying that you choose to get only 75 credits of advanced standing. Okay, and yes, so if you don't want to specialize, you can just take electives and choose whatever subjects fit your career objectives and your interests. Cool. We've also had a couple of questions in regards to what's the difference between the Master of Education and the Master of Teaching, and how do I become a teacher? Okay, so good question. The Masters of Education is not a teaching qualification. It basically is designed for anyone who just wants to get into the education industry. If you wish to become a teacher in a Australian school setting especially, then the Master of Teaching would be best. The Master of Teaching is basically the preferred course to become a registered teacher. Only because when you finish the Masters of Teaching, you are eligible to apply for a Victorian Institute of Teaching registration, which will then allow you to teach within the state of Victoria. However, if you are not interested in teaching in Australia and wish to teach overseas, that's a separate question altogether. If you wish to teach overseas, say in an international school setting or in another country, some countries actually recognize the Master of Education as a qualification that allows you to become a teacher in their education system. It depends on which country you go to, so I would suggest you do your background research before you actually decide to enroll for this course to see whether or not the country that your career goals are set on is willing to accept the Master of Education as a teaching qualification. All right. If you wish to teach in an international school, the Master of Education can be used for it. In some, depending on the employer. We also have a online course called the Masters of International Education, which is specifically tailor-made for the IB system, right? So that's something to consider as well. Alejandra, we have a question for you. Could you give us an example of a subject for the leadership specialization?
Yeah, it will be, for example, leading the organizational education. And for example, in this subject, the teachers make us go through many papers and many investigations related to how to develop the leadership of a workplace, of the educational workplace, which is very different from another setting. And then for the essays, they make us evaluate as a consultant type to see the organization from behind, and provide them with a plan of how to change leadership. We have to evaluate everything. So it's very, very engaging, very fun, very hand-on. Then we have, for example, school effectiveness and improvement, which makes us to analyze if it's effective or not, and then to provide ideas of how to improve. Just to name the two of them. I could continue with the four of them because I've already completed, and I'm just doing the last essay of my specialization. A bit sad because of that, but very happy too.
Almost done, right?
Almost done, yes.
Yeah. The two examples are perfect examples, Alejandra. Thank you so much. But because you've been here a lot longer than Rick and Ellen, I have another question that I think you might be, you know, able to share your experience on. Someone here has asked, what is the amount of time required on campus or face to face? Like how many days a week did you have to be on campus?
Okay, so from the perspective of an international student, I would say that it will be maybe 4 times a week. And I'm aware that these classes and the lessons are designed for Australian teachers. So we normally have classes from 5. If it's in the evening, it will be at 5, so everybody can finish their work and come to the university. And also we have classes on Saturdays and Sundays. Most of those, if it's in the weekend, it will be from 9 to 3:30 around. So for example, if you have subjects or that is just in the weekdays, you will have to be in the campus for 2 days every week, and then you will have some weekends of intensive days.
Right. And when you say intensive days, you're talking like a full day workshop?
Exactly, yes. So for example, you could have one subject will be Friday from 5 to 8, and then the following Saturday from 9 to 3:30. And then that same subject you will have in 1 week in the same situation, Friday and then Saturday.
Cool.
Just, yeah.
Okay, so now branching on from that question, another one just came in, and this is open to all the entire panel. How many hours a week would you commit to study?
Depends
Ellen,
on
let's start with you.
Well, it
Sorry,
really
Rick.
depends. Yeah, I usually start my scheduling once the deadline for the essays is approaching. I will use my semester planner to make notes on each day on how many hours do I want to commit myself to work on my assignments. And usually it's like around 2 to 3 hours for me to do the research for my paper and then start drafting my essays. So yeah, but it really depends with our other schedule as well. And yeah, it's good that we have the authority to, you know, schedule, to manage our schedule ourselves. But you know, the semester planner provided by the university has been very helpful for me as well to, you know, manage my schedule.
I would say that because I'm international student, I have to be a full-time one. So, and I have four subjects per semester. So I would invest, and I decided at the beginning when I arrived here, I decided, okay, this is I will see this as a job. So I will invest 8 hours of my day in studying, and then I distribute that according to the subjects and everything. But I will normally give eight hours of the day.
And Rick, how many hours do you put in?
Depends. When I was at the start of year teaching, doing CRT work, it would vary. I would tend to put about maybe 2 or 3 hours a week. It really depends upon my work schedule. But as was mentioned, it's all about planning when your assignments are due. Most subjects will have 2 essays per unit. And one's mainly tends to be due at the middle of the semester and the other one towards the end of semester. So you kind of have that leeway to kind of navigate your way through that journey. So it's just a matter of I've become better at planning for my essays by knowing from day one, okay, I've got this one due, and you break it up. It's however works for you. And of course, if you are in the classroom, it's hard sometimes because you've got things to mark or you've got to tell the meetings. But if you kind of map things out, and I do have a planner, and you talk to your lecturer as well about your other commitments, sometimes there is flexibility in some negotiation that you can perhaps do a little bit every week, and then you get to that point that you're ready to submit. So it's all about knowing your own preferred way of working.
And I should add something that, for example, in the specializations, the teachers are very aware of the order of the subjects. So, for example, and of the 2 subjects of the specializations you have to take in the one semester, you will have one, and when you finish that subject, you will have the other one. So, in terms of essay and due dates, it's very manageable.
Right. And Rick, going back to what you said earlier of you being a CRT teacher when you started this course, I actually have another question here. They're asking, how is this course managed when working full-time as a classroom teacher? How did you find the workload?
Look, it takes a bit of time getting used to it and getting your head around going back into a student's face, because it's easy when we're a teacher, we're kind of looking at everything and we're constantly planning, changing, and we're focused on that. So it's a matter of allowing myself to say, you know what, this is my time to develop, and I tended to find the time of the day that worked for me. So for me, it was like having, if I didn't have a period on in the class, I'd spend maybe even half an hour just going over some articles or going on my LMS site, which is where all the Melbourne Uni platform for all the subjects are, just having a flick through that, seeing what readings are up to stage. But I dedicated my Saturday afternoons between 1 and 4 just to my study, where I would lock out everything else, turn my mobile off, no marking. It was just for me, because it's about my quality time developing. So I made that commitment for that a bit of time. That's all for me, it worked. That works well for me. But then if I needed more time to do my essay, of course I'd more time, but I always made sure Saturdays in the afternoon, it was just me and Melbourne Uni.
Right. Thank you, Rick. We actually have time for just one more question, and it's actually quite an interesting one at that. We've got someone here who sent in a question before the event, and they were asking, how does this course help me as a director of a school improve the school environment? That's a very good question. Now, the interesting thing is, we actually have a lot of alumni who were in a similar boat. Some of our alumni have moved on to become deans of, say, Trinity College. One of them is our one of them is an alumni of ours. We've got superintendents in Indonesia who were alumni from the Masters of Education as well. So if you're a director of a school, if you do this Masters of Education, it basically it's depending on the specialization you choose, you can use it towards your uh, towards initiatives in your school. You can say, for example, if you chose equity and diversity and social change as a specialization, you could use your school as the basis for your assignments and your projects to come up with different initiatives to help make your school a more inclusive environment, a more supportive environment, for example. Or if you're looking at policy on a global context, you could actually do a comparative study of your school's education policy uh, against education policies from around the world. Um, okay. We got just one more question that just came in, cutting it close to the wire there. All right. So, what distance or online learning options are available for students who may not always be in Melbourne to attend face-to-face classes? Uh, Rick, just wondering what you have learned in your specialization.
Mm.
Also, what settings do you and other people want to go into when you graduate?
Okay, go
Oh, that's a
quickly.
lot of
Um,
questions there.
yeah, I'll try and wrap it up. But
We have 3 minutes.
online learning will provide everything is there on the LMS website, which is part of the platform that Melbourne Uni provides for its students. You're supported with Zoom technology, which allows you to meet with your lecturer on a specific time, as well as other students. So you have those resources that allow you to communicate as though you were in the classroom. The thing I wanted to say too, for all you aspiring educators and that, by doing this course, you become so much more digital literate. You start to understand how things connect. And the other thing I was going to quickly say with my specialization, you're provided with the leading education ideas. So you know what's happening at the moment, and you know what's going to probably, perhaps maybe happen next 20 or 30 years. So you have that knowledge skill set that you can then take to your employer and say, you know what, 21st century skills, we have to do this, this, and this. We need to amend the curriculum. We need to include this. So you have that scope and that knowledge set to be able to extend it further. And that's something that can't be taken away from you. So whether you do equity, diversity, or policy, and I think they're both intertwined in my specialty, you become a more well-informed person. You understand how power, knowledge, everything works in the system. What can I say? Come and join us.
Alejandra, uh, what, Alejandra, Ellen, what are your career goals after you graduate?
I would like to enter leadership positions. I have always been interested in that, and I was already working in some positions when I was in Paraguay. And I would like to further that experience and knowledge over there. And I also like to train teachers. Teach how to teach is my main purpose.
And Ellen?
Well, yeah, in my case, I actually haven't graduated for a long time from my bachelor degree. It's been 2 years, and then I go to Melbourne for my master degree, and I'm excited to go back when I finish to be a teacher and just basically
Right.
use all of the knowledge that I receive here to improve my teaching practice and to be a better teacher as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Ellen.
Uh,
Okay,
Patrick, can you hear me? I might, encounter some connection problems.
yeah, no, you were chopping in and out, but Ellen, we have to wrap it up, unfortunately. Thank you all, everybody, for joining us. Rick, Alejandra, Ellen, you have been a great inspiration to our students, and thank you all who have joined us this evening for this webinar. I am so sorry if we did not get to answer all your questions. For those of you who have submitted your questions beforehand and we didn't get a time to get to it, no worries. I will respond to you by email. All right. And as always, thank you all so much for joining us. Please stay safe and healthy, and this recording will be available in a couple of days. So thank you all so much. Have a lovely evening.